Hello, Angry of Mayfair here. Now look, this programme is in the worst possible taste. Before I'm finished, they'll take this rubbish off. They've got to listen to me, and you know why? Because I represent the silent majority! Bing bong, bing bong, bing bong, bing. Settle by your fireside, pick up your radio tones. The Kenny Everett Show is on the air.
Hello, I'm Barbara Cartland. And you're all under arrest. I'd like to read you an extract from my new romantic novel. When Lady Penelope swoons, her bosoms pop out like balloons. Her butler stands by with a gleam in his eye and pops them back in with warm spoons.
We are not amused.
Your Majesty.
Now that was funny.
I can't believe I heard it. It sounded so perverted. On second thoughts, I'm not so sure. I think I'll stay for more.
I can understand the orthodox way of defining a comedian. Where did Everett fit in? Probably nowhere. He fitted in his own space, and he was just brilliant.
First and foremost, he was a disc jockey. And everything sprang from the fact that he was involved in popular music.
He used to play everything for everybody, so that if you sat and listened to his programme, you'd get the drift of what was happening musically in the country. So he had a great love for musicians, and obviously for people like myself, whose records he'd played often. The Bee Gees, I remember the Bee Gees.
Take one pill from bottle A. Good. Next read, the shirt open to the navel, exposing hairy chest and revealing large golden medallion pill. Or as I call it, bottle B. Ah, he's got the right bottle this time. Well done, little chap. Stage 3, bottle C. You'll be needing the world-famous BG hair. Ah, look at you. Yes, not bad. But there's something missing. You're only one, and there should be 3. Take bottle D. Now you'll need the most important part of a BG, the world-famous vibrato. Will you all pick up the vibrato bottles and keep taking the pills until the required wobble is achieved?
Children of the world, watching every day go by. Changes my life, changes your life, keeps us all anticipating.
I first met Kenny on board MV Galaxy, which was Radio London, in December of '65, and we had just gone out on one of the roughest passages in this very old rusty tub that they called a tender, and I was getting very ill. And we got on board the ship from the tender, and I went into the mess area, and there was this little fella huddled in the corner, and I could tell immediately he was as sick as I was. And he said, "You must be Dave Cash." "Well, I'm Morris Cole." "Well, I'm Kenny Everett, actually."
When he joined Radio London, as a pirate disc jockey, they had to change their names for legal reasons. So Kenny adopted the name of Edward Everett Horton, who was an American comedy film actor. And he took the Everett part, and then he decided on Kenny because he said it sounded so warm and cuddly.
Wonderful Radio London.
Oh, you do it so beautifully, but you do it.
You're listening to Kenny and Cash on London.
So don't forget, just name the Beatles songs that we played within the last half hour. You can win yourself help albums or nothing. You can also win Dave Cash if you try hard enough. We're trying to get rid of him, I tell you. We have the weather. Okay, but we got 10 seconds to go. You know, we want to give it real spot-on weather time. Okay. Oh, gosh. What do you think this is? The Biscuit Company or something? British Biscuit Company. Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the time is exactly 6 o'clock.
we knew that the pirate station's life was limited. And then all of a sudden, Radio 1 was going to start.
Turn on the radio every day, how simply wonderful. Hooray, 247 is where you'll see music and laughter, BBC. So when you're down and feeling awfully low, here's what to do to make you blues. Just go, open the pages of your Radio Times and turn on the radio and groove your blues away.
I was there for the beginning of Radio 1. I was part of that famous photograph on the steps of the church opposite Broadcasting House. And he was on the weekends and getting huge audiences, because those were the days of the huge audiences. National radio, we'd no opposition. They'd stamped out the pirates. And, you know, a 10 million audience was not unremarkable for radio, and Ken used to get that.
He loved the Goons, absolutely adored the Goons. And we would spend hours just listening and listening and listening.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes, what is it?
Basement Bill here.
I know,
I
yeah.
just wish to know if you want any Revive 45s.
Why?
Because I'm going down to the basement.
Oh,
in
good.
amongst the filth and the muck.
Oh.
To dig you some out.
Oh, God.
Right.
What a mess you are.
It's me.
He was the start, if you like, of the non-disc jockey, of the subversive disc jockey. And to somebody who was interested in radio, as I say, this was a revelation to me, and I thought, well, here's something to build on. I just thought that he was amazing, and in a sense, it sounds pretentious to say this, but he was a genius of his kind. He was almost like, if disc jockeys were dot to dot, he was Renoir.
It's colouring time. You've all got the crayons we sent you, and you've been paying attention to the colours here on the set. Okay, now we take all the colour away and leave you at the outlines. Remember the colours? Got 'em? Now, colour your screens and mail your TV to me in time for part 2. You could win a week in Epping Forest and all the wood you can eat. Start colouring now.
Kenny Everett, born Liverpool, 1944, son of a tugboat captain, entered showbiz by accident. Big accident.
He'd tell me how he started. He'd say that he had a wooden tape recorder, he said, and he'd make his tapes and cycle off and post things up to the BBC. And when he was a child, he said he came to London and stood at the gates of the BBC television centre and looked through the gates at the building and thought, one day I'll be here.
We used to go to places right up on the Yorkshire moors in the Derbyshire Peak District, Exmoor, Dartmoor, away from crowds, because he actually hasn't come out anywhere else. He loved the countryside, the moorlands, and he would actually, if he saw a beautiful valley, we'd come out over a hillside, and he would often sort of speak to God. He'd say, well, that's brilliant, God. He'd say, I'm going to give you 9 out of 10 for that scene.
Oh, look, there's God.
I think the thing that he disguised the most was this deep-rooted spirituality. I mean, he was a Roman Catholic to begin with, and that he was always cursing and mucking about with God and religion. But it was interesting that at the very end he came back. And all the time I felt that he was actually a very religious person.
Please let this show go okay, with no major boobs or goofs, and without accidentally saying a rude word like knickers or bum. Are you listening?
No, I'm watching ITV.
Thank you very much.
But I'm taping you.
He could take something that was very serious and turn it round and make it funny. And of course that was what got him into so much trouble all the way through his life, because he would just try and ease the pressure. Let's not get too serious. I remember once he was talking to, I think it was Father Oliver McTurnan, who was one of our clergy who used to do the Sunday moment of thought, that sort of business. And Father turned up in the gear, and Kenny just said, he said, oh, those gowns, the mitres, oh, it's gorgeous. He said, the church is a fashion show for fags. Like this, to being very camp. And Oliver McTurnan, who isn't, was not amused, you know, and he's, you know, that sort of thing. So he was always putting himself into hot water. But you had to say, listen, you know, it's just him. Don't worry about it. He'd put his mouth in gear before his brain in motion.
Why were you sacked from Radio 1?
Oh, blimey, I'll have to run through a past catalogue of horror. It was for insulting some politician. That's right, the transport minister's wife, that was it. She passed her test first time, and I thought that was a bit odd, the transport minister's wife. So I said that she'd probably crammed a fiver in his hand, and that didn't go down too well, and they asked me to leave. In fact, they insisted upon it.
I think that proves that life can't be all fun.
People within the corporation just could not understand this new type of presenter. They were used to the very, very proper radio presenters. And for someone to be as anarchic as Everett was in those days was totally alien to them.
And he was just having fun. There was no malice in the man. There wasn't an ounce of malice in the man.
He was a creature of the technology, or the technology was his creature, if you like. I wouldn't work with tapes because I wouldn't have the dexterity or the ability to do it. But he worked it and worked off it. And I was actually talking to some of the boys in the BBC who had worked with him as engineers with this program in mind, and saying, well, what was he like to work with as an engineer, as a technician? And they said he was very within himself, that he wasn't a great conversationalist. He wasn't one who did 45 minutes in the bar and then another 45 minutes in front of the microphone. That wasn't his way. He was contained and introverted. But then once the old green light went on, he became a gibbering maniac.
This is where I come alive. I'm a drag outside the building, but in here, the whole world is my oyster. Today, the BBC. Tomorrow, ITV, if they'll have me. Hello, Sid Snot here once again. You know, I was in my favourite supermarket the other day, breaking up a few shelves, and suddenly, lo and behold, I saw on a shelf Action Yob. I mean, I knew I was famous, but I mean, golly, you know, I looked at the ingredients on the back of the packet, and it said, just wind up, and it nuts ya.
He never, ever went out of fashion. I think from the very early days of radio, all the people that listened to him when he was on the pirate ships then followed his career throughout, whether it was the BBC, Capital, all the television he did. The fans were constant, and he picked them up as he went.
No, don't be afraid, my dear. It's only me, Cuddly Ken.
The most successful characters was his DIY man, when he put a brown overall on, and was this totally useless DIY man who would show viewers how to build a bookcase and end up missing fingers, bits of his arms, blood forever. But the young kids thought he was just wonderful. And they would write from the schools, a whole class of kids would write and say, oh, we love the DIY man, he's our favourite character.
Just before we start, I'd like to say a few words about looking after your tools. A dirty tool is no use to anybody. They've got to be in the right place and clean and sharp, like our old mate, the crosscut saw. He likes to live down here, and I've really had a go at sharpening him today.
We were criticised for violent elements in our comedy, and I think Ev himself said the wisest words. He said, a bucket of blood is funny, a trickle of blood is nasty and worrying. So we had the inept handyman, Reg Prescott, who would operate a saw towards the camera, and the camera would move up, so you didn't see what was happening, but you knew his other hand was in the way, and horrific things would ensue.
Let's call this door here number 1. Now this door over here, number 2.
They showed us some figures. They broke down the audience in relation to age groups. And they said that 40% of the audience is between 20 and 45. And 27% of the audience is between 6 and 12, which is really weird, isn't it? And so the BBC now, the board, are saying, wait a minute, there's 27% of the audience is kids. This is a kiddish show here. We can't do all this filth. And they say, but the kids love it. They don't think it's filth. And plus the other 40% are watching, they're not kids. But it must be more for children. But the children are watching. The equation goes crazy just because of the numbers. And we're not trying to write for children. It's Kenny's got this appeal for children.
Our secret code was bananas, because they were the most, well, we considered them to be the most naturally perfect thing God had created. It was a happy, smile-shaped fruit in yellow, and something that was good for you, and something that just looked happy. And we'd send one another bananas. And he's like doing tapestry. But it was the hobby of kings. It wasn't a ninny thing to do. And he had tapestried it. And the thing is, there's a little bit here at the end which he said he didn't want to finish. He didn't want to take that line right to the top, because he said he felt if he did that then he'd never see me again. So he's left it unfinished, which I'm glad about.
I think when I'm out and about with Cleo, you know, the woman on my show, we laugh a lot, and we don't seem to stop. As soon as we meet, we start smiling, and then we start laughing, and we're helpless until nighttime comes.
Kenny and I would speak for hours of how wonderful it was that we were able to meet on this planet, because he felt in a healthy way alien, and so did I.
What we really want is some bizarre people.
Well, there is one frightening thing I do.
Oh, what's that?
My head blows up.
Fantastic! How did you do that? That was wonderful! We're gonna be rich!
I don't know. It's the first time I've done it, and I didn't like it much.
You know, you take Everett, or you leave Everett, you can't really take bits of him and leave other bits out. I mean, you like some bits more than other bits, but you have to take him as an entity, I think, and that's what makes him a major entertainer.
Yee-haw! Big Mike's dead.
All of Kenny's characters were high concepts. You knew exactly who they were, and that's what was good about them.
Oh, kiss of puke. Mother of this parish. Here's a joke. Geezer in a pub downs 24 pints of lager and eats 18 packets of peanuts. Didn't bother him a bit. By Jove, on the way home, he pebble dashed 2 houses.
My mummy says that I could grow up to be just like my dad. I said, does that mean I gotta sleep with the woman next door?
Yes, Michael, that's true. I know there were only 3 Musketeers, and they were never in Africa, but I think basically, don't you, that the film works on its own terms. I had a wonderful time making it with the pygmies. You know, those people are really nice. Oh, those little ones make such a change. You know, they had such small parts, but they really tried hard.
That's not funny at all!
He enjoyed all his characters. There wasn't anything he disliked. And I think the way that he played all his characters showed that he could take anyone, any style of person, and bring a realness to them and a humour. So from Cupid Stunt to Sid Snot to Gizzard Puke, Kenny made those people real and funny.
The mooted name for the rocker bedecked in black leather, Ray and Kenny came up with Sid Snot. And I, very sniffily and pompously, said, we can do better than that. That is terrible. And we had one of our rare disagreements. They lined up against me 2-1 and said, he's called Sid Snot. And I came up with other names, which I can't remember now. They've been erased from my memory, which I thought were wittier. Nope, Sid Snot it was, and that seemed to catch on. So I just backed off gracefully and said, all right. I still think it's a terrible name. I do, Ev.
So this snail is going across the lawn on a beautiful summer morning, sun shining, birds are singing everywhere, and he feels great. He thinks to himself,
life really is worth living. And he's so happy, he starts to sing. Chanson d'amour. And the lawnmower goes, rat-tat-tat-tat-tat. Hello, my little Cox's orange papins. I was with a young lady the other night, tete-a-tete, and I said to her, "Am I the first man you have ever loved?" And she said, "I don't know, were you in Marseille in 1962? Au revoir, my little King Edwards."
The gallery of characters soon built up. We wanted a heavily accented French character who wasn't Clouseau, but was something individual, and I think it was Kenny himself who came up with the idea of the rubber jaw for Marcel Wave. It was the only character in which he concealed his beard, because he fancied the idea of having a curly moustache and no beard. So he did all that, My Little Courgettes and everything, with this ridiculous rubber chin on. And then the last one we ever did, he wrenched the rubber chin off his face, crying,
"It was me all the time."
It must have been a great illusion.
He liked complexity, he liked technicalities. And indeed, his jokes on radio and his jokes on television were based on technicalities, not necessarily wordplay. Most comedians that I know would kill for the final laugh. And if you get one laugh more than them, they would cheerfully strangle you. If they had a Stanley knife, they'd stick it in you. But he wasn't like that. He was generous. He was an open-hearted performer. He allowed you room to make a complete fool of yourself.
BUM? That must be Broadcasting Under Manager. No, it's a bum. What else is here? Toadies, studios, and, Ah!
Ken!
You!
Well met!
At moonlight!
Let us continue as we did last night.
Darling!
You're dancing as well as ever.
I know.
But now I must away.
Why?
I must see the Broadcasting Under Manager.
No!
Oh, yes!
Terry!
No, I must do it,
Don't
Ken!
open that door!
It was the only show I've ever worked on where nobody said quiet. And we would do things like drag a cameraman in front of the camera because it was his birthday, all that indulgent, jolly stuff, and custard pies were hurled. And the crews really loved that man. They'd do anything for him. It was great.
The director doesn't know I'm going to do this. Come with me. Over here, this way. Dratty poo. I bet you thought this was the height of glamour, Thames TV, didn't you? Well, look at this. Filthy tea towels. Dirty old stained drinks. Hollywoodsville. Oh. A bit of the old unexpected there.
He would just grab hold of the camera and just take it off any way that he wanted. I mean, he was a director's nightmare and an audience joy.
All right. You coped. Wonderful.
If you are based in surreal humour and suddenly you want something that inflates, blows up, something that shrivels, you want three of something immediately, you can do that on radio, but suddenly try and do that on television was an impossible task. But Everett expanded the skills and techniques of television, and it was brilliant to see some of the characters and the things that they did, because he asked these brilliant technicians to do the impossible.
Tell me, Miss Wilcox, what exactly is it that you do?
Well, I sing, and I act,
Yes?
and I dye my hair.
My God. How did you do that?
Do what?
Well, your hair, it keeps changing colour.
Oh, really? What colour is it now?
Well, it's sort of green, blue, red.
Ah, well, that means it's Tuesday.
My God, how did you know that? How embarrassing.
They queued up. We were the sort of, if I would presume, we were the Eric and Ernie of our day insofar as in the music world, the world of the bands and the groups. They loved being on. They all came on to be insulted and hit and drenched.
Ladies and gentlemen of video show land, what a star we have for you today. I mean, we've had stars and we've had stars, but this is a star and 3/4. Ladies and gentlemen, that famous bum on legs, Rod Stewart. Hello, Rod.
Hi, Tony.
Well, Rod, I've got a favour to ask you.
Don't be so filthy.
Now, I've always wanted to ask
What?
you this. Can I touch you?
Whereabouts, darling?
Just touch you.
My mother's not going to put up with this. I don't know about yours.
Go on, let me touch you.
Whereabouts? So I'm supposed to actually look as if I didn't know that was actually going to happen, you know. Because, I'm supposed to, you know. And, anyway, he didn't know that was going to happen either.
We felt comfortable with him. And quite often that's not the case when you do a TV show. You don't feel absolutely at ease in the environment. But because we knew him and we knew that he genuinely liked us, we'd do anything. I mean, why would I string myself up?
As ever, we leave you with a cliffhanger.
Shut up! Shut up! This could only have been done on the Kenny Everett show because the other person I suppose I would have done it with would have been Eric Morecambe, the Morecambe and Wise show. Again, they were very lovable characters. They were really wonderful people as well, very nice people to work with. But the obvious thing for me was, and that's what Kenny homed in on, was the fact that my image has always been the nice boy, the boy next door, the goody two-shoes of rock and roll. Good morning.
What do you want?
Well, this is a Change Your Image Limited, isn't it?
Well, what's it got to do with you?
Well, I'd like to change my image.
Well, don't just stand there. Tell me what you are now.
Well, I'm Cliff Richard.
Oh, my God.
Well, I know it's got its problems. You see, I'm so nice and I've got these teeth and everything and everybody just loves me. It's just awful. I haven't got an enemy in the world.
I bet you're one of these people who goes around smiling and saying, good afternoon and thank you.
It's exactly what I do. You've got to help me.
I think I've got just the thing for you. It's somewhere here, yeah. Ah, here we are. Sarcasm for rock stars. This is what you need. You've got to learn to be sarcastic.
That sounds great.
No, you say, that sounds great.
Oh, that sounds great.
It's too likeable. Not like that. You're supposed to be rude to me, make me hate you. Try it again.
Well, that sounds great.
Oh, that was terrific.
Oh, do you think so? Thank you.
No, I was being sarcastic, get it?
Oh, were you?
No, it's, oh, were you?
I'm sorry.
Don't ever say sorry. Say, I'm sorry.
Sorry?
Oh, no.
Oh, terrific. Just when I think I'm getting somewhere. Thank you very much. Great. God, blimey.
I think he's got it. Great!
Some people would have thought that maybe I wouldn't have done it, but for me it was an obvious thing to do. But probably obvious because it was Kenny again. I could trust him, that I knew that whatever he was doing, it wouldn't be a send-up. We'd be laughed with. I wouldn't be laughed at. Quite a lot of the TV stuff that you see now, comedy-wise, people have laughs at your expense. And from the bits that I remember with Kenny, he didn't laugh or get a laugh at my expense. We did it together and we got laughs together and people laughed with us.
I got myself a crying, talking, sleeping. Mom! I want my mom.
Something you wear, you know, round your shoulders and the rest is bare, but I love records and big hits. Sydney, get your hand off my...
Pleasant surprise. Up to now, the show's been almost acceptable, apart from one of two of the groups. And the dancers. There's dancers. When will they stop? And Lenny himself, that skin-tight shirt, hugging his biceps, turning the head of a poor innocent girl. It's got to stop! Pinky! Peggy! Where are you?
Not me.
I wouldn't do it. It isn't my job to do it. But I would call with the strongest voice and say, this is crazy.
I met Mary Whitehouse once at a do, and she had castigated us because of hot gossip and all the outrage that went on. And we got front pages in national papers and enormous publicity. And a couple of years later, I think it was, I actually met her, and I was introduced to her, and I shook her hand and said, thank you. And she looked rather surprised and said, sorry, why? And I said, I work on the Kenny Everett show. You made us. And her eyes became double glazed, and she moved away to talk to somebody else.
Hello. Have you noticed that TV shows today are leaning more and more towards sexual innuendo? I think it's absolutely disgusting that this sort of thing is allowed, particularly here at the BBC. It seems that every time you turn on the telly, some low comedian is using some bosomy girl as a foil for his cheap jokes. If you agree, write to me. Ludovic Kennedy, keep boobs off our tubes, Wood Lane, London, etc.
I was doing a programme called Points of View, and we used to get a lot of letters complaining about filth and nudity and all that stuff. So I was asked to go on the Kenny Everett show, and the close-up of me is saying, there's too much nudity, filth and rubbish on the screen. I'm absolutely disgusted by the nudity. And the camera pulls back and there's a naked girl sitting on my lap as I'm saying this.
I quite agree. This sort of thing must stop.
We had the usual brigade of people who hadn't really seen him and said it was filth and disgusting and how dare they. And of course the great fans would write in and say, how can they say that? The man's a genius. So that really happened. It's very self-defeating, all those programmes about what the viewers think and say. But no, there's no result ever comes of it. It boils down to, oh, no, he didn't, oh, yes, he did, and that's the end of that. And with Kenny, I think you just had to take him as he was, like not the 9 o'clock news. He would do things that would outrage.
Good evening. This is a party political broadcast on behalf of the Conservative Party. You know, a lot of people have been saying that our programmes are dull. Well, as Margaret Thatcher said only the other week, she said... Good grief, I've lost my deposit.
Any last doubts that American-style campaigning has now come to Britain were dispelled today by the Conservative Party.
Let's bomb Russia! Let's kick Michael Foot's stick away!
At the end, somebody remarked that after this performance, election campaigning in Britain will never be quite the same again.
Can I get stick? Oh. Yes, well, let me tell you the background to that. You know Michael Winner, the movie director? Michael said, you've got to say something outrageous, Kenny, because you'll be on stage and it'll probably be on the news. So I thought, oh, my God, what? Something like, let's bomb Russia? Well, perfect! I can't say that, Michael. It's outrageous. You're in the business of outrageous, Montoya. So I went on stage and said this fairly innocuous, I thought, statement. Because, I mean, we couldn't bomb Russia if we tried, because we've got one wooden rocket and the rubber bands bust anyway.
Have you actually been to number 10?
She doesn't know who I am. She grabbed hold of my hand and she went, put your hand out. You're me. I'm her. There's number 10. She went, so nice of you to have come.
He had a great simplicity about him. He was complicated, of course, but he was simple in his relationships and simple in his attitude. I don't think he certainly wasn't cynical. I don't think he expected to be hurt. I don't think he thought that people would do him wrong. I think he thought that once he worked on the radio and got to do what he wanted to do, that the world would be always kind to him.
Working with him was a joy, with all the ups and downs. But his friendship was great. He called me honorary gay. You're honorary gay, he said. Married 30 years and 4 children. What a smokescreen.
In those days, if you said, as I did, oh, by the way, folks, because they asked me, yes, I'm gay, they went, oh, Kenny Everett is a screaming fag! And that got it over with. Whereas now, if the news of the world want to go to town on you, they have to, I mean, being gay is nothing now. It has to be, he nails choir boys to the roof, sort of thing. You know, they've got to really go to town nowadays. And I'm old news now.
we were at the Italian behind Capitol, and he said Ivan's come back from New York, or whatever it was, and he said he thinks Freddie's HIV. That was the first one, and he said I could be as well. And I said, let's not think about it. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. And he took my hand over the table and he said, yes, it will.
Kenny Everett was ambushed by cameras and fans as he turned up for work this afternoon. He admitted he would have preferred keeping quiet about being HIV positive, but his message was that he was feeling as zany as ever.
What's your response to all the fans who've turned out today?
I got 3 hugs in the street this morning. Yeah. I must do this more often.
Kenny was a great cuddler. When I next saw him, which was I think the day afterwards, and when it was really public, I gave him a big hug in the studio and I said, "You all right?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm fine." He said, "I'm checking out who's touching me." So he was incredibly sensitive as a man and a human being.
I think the day he announced that he was HIV positive, all we had were letters of support. Wonderful, wonderful letters saying how sorry they were to hear that he was HIV positive. However, carry on working. We still want to see you. We still want to listen to you. And they were loyal and true.
Kenny Everett has known about his condition for 4 years. He could have picked up the virus as much as 10 years ago.
When we discuss him and his condition, which he'd always try and laugh about, I had to be very careful. I was very aware of being very careful. I wanted him to know that I would give him my livers and kidneys, and I'd tell him, I wish I could just give you everything to make you better. But he'd know that, and so would never dwell depressingly on it. I'd say, "Oh, so now you're going to leave me here in the stench of the smoggy London," where we always had a pact we'd roll off together the end of Beachy Head in old-fashioned bath chairs.
Oh, it's no good. You've got to go into the kitchen and change into something horrible!
What is it, darling? Can I help in any way? And he'd say that he wouldn't really leave, and he hasn't, which is nice. I know he hasn't, because we have had one last secret of where I would find his messages, and I find them.
I don't think Ken ever believed that anything on this planet was real. I think he never saw himself as a human being among other human beings. He saw himself as a fantasy of his own imagination, and the people around him as fantasies as well. And I think that's what coloured his work in the end. If you had to sort of sum him up, you would say, well, he had a fantastic view of the world, and he was the fantasy within it.
I'd like to dunk you in my coffee, spread you on my bread. Gee, I wish that you were in the highball going to my head. Dear, when you sit across the table, I'm done like the giant in the fable. Fee-fi, for fun, I'm overcome with a cannibalistic feeling. I'd like to smother you with mushrooms and everything. I claim you'd be a dainty dish to set before a king. Sweetheart, if I could obtain you as part of my daily menu, I'd like to dunk you in my coffee, spread you on my bread.
He'd like to dunk us in his coffee, spread us on his bread. We wish that we were in the highball going to his head.
Sweetheart, if I could obtain you as part of my daily menu, I'd like to dunk you in my coffee, spread you on my bread.
He probably walks around Harrods when it's closed. No, yes, I'm sure he's somewhere full of gleeful people and fresh air.
We were once high up above Dovedale, and we were leaning on a fence looking down the valley.
And he said to me, hey, this is great. He said, God must have planned this place. Or he said, this is what heaven will be, won't it? So I said, probably. He said, shall we be buried here? He said, shall we make it? I said, well, let's wait 50 years or so before we do. And, joking. And he said, no, he said, I could actually see myself and I would quite like to be buried up here. I said, well, you can't dig a hole and bury yourself. He said, but, ashes could go there. And in fact, we did.
There was so much love on his funeral. I don't think I will ever experience anything like it again. To see all those people, all those presenters, all those faces who said, we loved him, he was brilliant. And it must have meant such a lot to him. It really must. Because I firmly believed in the church he was still going to pop out of the coffin. I just thought it's going to be another sketch. It's just going to open any minute and he's going to say,
hello, it was all a joke. That was the mood. That this isn't real and, that he'll be back.
Influence is always a hard thing, I think, to analyse, because usually we're influenced and no one really knows it's happening. I'm influenced musically by loads of people and I'm probably not even aware of it. You're influenced by what you like. I loved Elvis, so no doubt I was influenced by him. I loved Buddy Holly, Jerry Lee Lewis, the Everly Brothers, you name it, all those main rock people. In the same with comedy, people loved Kenny Everett. Comics loved Kenny Everett. Everybody loved the way that he worked and what he presented on television. And so therefore I think his influence will be there for a long, long time. And it will filter through without us even noticing. People will do things without even saying, oh, that's my Kenny Everett bit. It'll have been embedded in our psyche, and I'm sure that's the way it'll come out. Because there's no doubt, someone that was as funny as that, and as likeable as that too, has got to have an influence on people in the future. Has to be.
Kenny was there first, and it said to other broadcasters, well, it's all right to be a subversive and to say something naughty once in a while. That's all right. So I think in that way, he certainly influenced me.
Hello, all you friends of Dorothy out there. This is Sydney Aloysius Snot here to introduce you a very important date in the social calendar of our great nation here. As you know, upcoming is the British Eurovision Violence Contest. And here, ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you our British contender in said contest, Freddie, good start, Mercury. Ladies and gentlemen, do your stuff, Fred.
Kenny was always good for a laugh, even when he was very ill. He used to come and he'd say, have you heard the joke? Have you heard that joke? Have you heard? He wasn't the kind of guy where you say, how are you? He'd say, fine. He wouldn't say, oh, this hurts, that hurts, He'd say, fine. And you could tell from the eyes that he was hurting. You could tell from his body language that he was hurting, but he was more interested in telling you the latest joke.
I say, Ken.
What?
Got any time left over?
Yes?
Well, why not tell them your joke?
What a wonderful idea! This happened last December when radio station WHLD in New York called up the British ambassador in Washington and said if he could have anything he wanted for Christmas, what would it be? And he thought, oh, God, I better be careful here. It could be a big scandal, you know, ambassador accepts bribes, etc. I better ask for something really small. So he said he'd like a pair of slippers and some aftershave. Then on Christmas Day, the ambassador turned on the radio and heard the announcer say, WHLD asked some of the world's leading ambassadors what they would like for Christmas. The French ambassador asked for peace on earth and goodwill to all men. The Chinese representative asked for an end to all wars. And the British ambassador asked for a pair of slippers and some aftershave.
A wonderful, wonderful, iconoclastic sense of humour. Many would equate it with lunacy. But not me. Not me. He was mad in the Spike Milligan sense. And that's probably as sane as anybody gets.
Well, that's the end of another show. What a great show it was. Full of kidney-quivering, spleen-shattering, bowel-bursting moments of joy. Meep, meep, meep. Oh, look, we've got a few moments left. Just enough time for me to tell you the secret of life. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, the secret of life is a The secret of life is a... excuse me.